Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matthew Hamanjibangan, and this is my friend Hakim Dayal. Welcome to today's presentation. Today we will be presenting about exploring virtual events as sustainable events. Today we will be discussing the concept of sustainable events and how virtual events have the potential to be sustainable. We will explore the limitations and then the benefits, and then discuss case examples of successful events that have combined both virtual and physical elements to create sustainable events. Now I will hand it off to my friend Hakim to present the next part.
Thank you, Matthew. Now, to discover how events are truly sustainable, we have to figure out what sustainable events are. So let's define that real quick and why that's important. So sustainable events are events that are designed and organized and implemented in a way that minimizes the negative impact on the environment and the society. So such events focus on reducing carbon emissions and waste and ensuring that the local economy benefits from the event. In fact, there's a study that shows that virtual events are 90%, up to 90% more sustainable than physical events, which is amazing. And sustainable events are important because they promote the use of resources in a responsible manner, right? And that helps, obviously, to preserve the environment for future generations. And to understand that even more, we should explore virtual events and explore how sustainable that can be. And for that, I'll pass it back to my friend Matthew.
Virtual events are events that take place online without the need for participants' physical attendance. Virtual events have the potential to be sustainable because they can significantly reduce carbon emissions from public transport, from transportation you use to go to the event, and waste such as paper waste and food waste that traditional events generate. Virtual events do not have a physical footprint, basically. We do not need physical transportation to get to it. We can use laptops, computers, and such, which will reduce the carbon footprint of the event. Virtual events also reduce the waste compared to physical events, because there is no need for printed materials, papers, and such. So now I will pass it off to my friend Hakim to present the next part, which is examples of successful virtual events.
Well, thank you, Matthew. Yep, so let's talk about some examples of successful virtual events. There are many successful virtual events that have prioritized sustainability. Obviously, in the 2020s, coronavirus has plagued and basically forced us to go for more sustainable and more virtual events. Like, for example, the United Nations Climate Change Conference, the COP26. It was held in 2020 and was conducted virtually. And in fact, to this day, it's considered to be one of the most sustainable climate conferences ever. Now, why is this a big deal? Now, first of all, the event was carbon neutral, and participants were encouraged to use sustainable transportation methods to reduce their carbon footprint. Usually, you have a lot of private jets all flying into one place for that, but with virtual events, you don't need that, and you need it less. And another example is the 2020 Cannes Film Festival in France, which was conducted virtually also due to the pandemic. Now, this festival reduced its carbon emissions by 25% compared to the previous year's physical events. On paper, it sounds like virtual events are the way to go. But, however, like everything, there are limitations, and for that, Matt will now explain the limitations of virtual events as sustainable events.
Let me explain the limitations of virtual events as sustainable events. As with everything in life, there's a limit to the sustainability of virtual events. The need for high-speed internet and energy consumption from the electronic devices such as laptops and PCs and phones will result in carbon emissions. And if virtual events are not planned and executed properly, they can still produce waste and carbon emissions. So there are a few important things to consider when hosting one. such as the energy source used to power these virtual events, whether they are green, such as solar panels and wind energy, or still burning fossil fuels and causing pollution. So now, I will pass it off to my friend Hakim for the next part where we will talk about case examples.
Right. So we've talked about how it can be good and we've talked about how it can be bad because of its limits. Now let's look at some case studies and case examples to really determine how this can be done efficiently. Despite the limitations of virtual venues, there are successful examples of events that have combined both virtual and physical elements, and they create sustainable events. For example, the 2020 Democratic National Convention in the United States was held virtually, but it also included physical locations where speakers could give their speeches physically to a crowd. Granted, it's a much smaller crowd, but still you have that hybrid between the two. Now, this hybrid event reduced carbon emissions from transportation, and it also allowed still for some physical attendance, which is great, right? And another example, another good case study is the 2021 Sundance Film Festival, which held virtual screenings and discussions, but also had screenings in drive-in theaters to reduce the carbon emissions. Now, this is a good thing because not only do you get to incorporate the crowd that is at the event venue, but you also get to share the event experience with people from all around the world virtually. And because of this, there needs to be this balance between the two, right? And let's conclude it with Matt. Why don't you go ahead? Thank you.
Therefore, in conclusion, virtual events can be and do have the potential to be sustainable, but there are also limitations to that ability. Virtual events can reduce carbon emissions and waste compared to physical events, but they also require other things such as high-speed internet and high energy consumption from electronic devices that are able to attend the event itself. Hybrid events, however, are events that combine both virtual and physical elements to create a more sustainable physical event, therefore allowing participants to both either go to the physical location or to attend it virtually online. So to answer the question, are truly sustainable events virtual events? The answer is that virtual events have the potential to be sustainable, but that is not the only solution. We encourage those of you who are here today listening to our presentation to consider both the potential of both hybrid and virtual events in creating more sustainable events in the future. And who knows, someone who is listening in right now might continue to innovate and create a more sustainable alternative to virtual events in the future. Thank you for listening to our presentation today.
Thank you.